In February 2022, I injured my back whilst lifting weights and developed sciatica in not one, but both of my legs. Now, even though it took me 4 months to fix the problem, eventually it did get better and it's never returned since. And in today's video, I'm going to break down exactly what I did to fix my own sciatica and what hopefully will work for you as well. My name is Harlow, and I'm the Over-Fifties specialist physio here at HT Physio in Farnham, and I've helped thousands of people to improve the symptoms of their sciatica and stop it from returning. And today I'm going to share with you exactly what worked for me. So I was initially really reluctant to make this video because I'm obviously not over 50, so my experiences might not match up with someone who's watching this. But my team persuaded me that this kind of info might help someone out there, so here I am. I'm going to tell you the full story and exactly how I fixed my problem. So it started in February 2022. I'd just been on holiday. It was a 2-week holiday. I hadn't had access to a gym or to any exercise equipment. And when I got home, I was feeling quite antsy. I missed the gym and I wanted to get back in as soon as possible. So as soon as we got back, I went straight into the gym and I tried to pick up exactly where I'd left off 2 weeks ago before we'd gone on holiday. And one of the exercises I was trying to improve was my deadlift, which is the act of picking up a really heavy barbell from the floor and then putting it back down again. It's a great exercise, really good for your leg strength and your back strength. Basically, it works the whole body. Now, on my first session back, even though I was feeling quite weak and tired from the travel, I tried to put as much weight on the bar as I had done before I'd gone away. I did warm up normally, but I went straight in for my first working set with the heavier weight. I did my first set. It felt really heavy, but it was okay. I put the weight down. I had my normal rest period, and then I went for set number 2. And about 2 or 3 repetitions in, bam, I felt this pain at the back of my right leg. And it felt like a dog had grabbed the back of my leg in its mouth and was biting as hard as it could. It was a really weird sensation. It's not like anything I'd ever had before. I put the weight down, I stopped the exercise, the pain subsided, and I thought, that was a bit odd. Now, this is the funny thing. I specialize in helping people with sciatica. It's one of my special interest areas. But at that time, I convinced myself that what I'd done is I'd pulled a hamstring. Okay, I've never really pulled a hamstring before. I've always had pretty flexible and strong hamstrings, and I thought, this must be what a hamstring strain feels like. So I continued training. I didn't do the deadlifts, but I kept doing my session. The pain felt okay, and then I got home that night. Now, as I settled down for the evening, what I noticed was the pain in my leg started to come back, and not only that, but my foot on my right side had gone completely numb. So I could feel underneath the sheets in bed, I couldn't even feel my toes against the duvet, and that really freaked me out. And it made me totally aware of the fact that this wasn't just a hamstring strain, this was definitely sciatica. The thing I found most weird about this whole experience was that at no point in this process did I have any back pain whatsoever. The pain was just in my leg, and the numbness was just in my foot and in my shin. Now, it's not totally unusual for someone to injure their back and only have leg pain, but I just didn't expect it. And what I'd probably done on reflection was injured a disc right at the base of the spine. Now, the most commonly injured disc in your spine is the L5-S1 disc, which is the one right at the base of the spine. Okay, it's most commonly injured because it lives at the apex of the curve of the lower back. About 80% of disc injuries are thought to be at the L5-S1, and my pain matched up perfectly with an L5-S1 pattern. I had sciatica going down the back of the leg and the side of the calf right down into the toes. So it was pretty textbook. Obviously, the mechanism matched up really well as well, because I was bending forward, lifting a heavy weight, which does put more pressure on the discs. And doing deadlifts when you're fatigued or with bad technique is a risk factor for a disc injury. So I was pretty confident that's exactly what I'd done. So this is a disc, and what I'd assumed had happened is I had a disc bulge which had caused the inner material of the disc to poke out and touch the nerve at the base of the spine. Now, the interesting thing about disc injuries is most of the time they don't cause any pain. So we're not even aware that we've got one. It's possible that I could have other disc injuries in my spine, but I just never notice them because they don't cause pain. But if the disc bulge comes out and it touches the nerve, that tends to be when people get the sciatic symptoms. So that's probably what I'd done, and I got to work with my normal disc rehab trying to fix it. Now, the bad news about this is, even though I should know what I'm doing, over the next few weeks, the pain just got worse and worse. And not only did I have pain in my right leg, I was starting to develop it in my left leg as well, which again really freaked me out because that is a risk factor of developing a rare condition called cauda equina syndrome. So instantly the cogs in my brain are turning. I'm thinking, oh my God, this is going to get worse and worse and worse. But thank God I stuck with my original plan and eventually things did start to get better. Now, I learned some lessons in the process, and these are the lessons on reflection that I can look back and say I took away from this whole experience. The first lesson I learned from this episode is that nerve pain can be really unpredictable. Sometimes it was there, sometimes it wasn't. But after a while, I realized there didn't always seem to be rhyme or reason behind when I was suffering or when I was not in pain. So in the end, I stopped trying to read into the pain so closely. The next thing I learned is that certain postures absolutely killed me, and it wasn't always the ones that I expected. Now, whenever I've been treating patients, I always expected that forward flexion with a disc bulge tends to usually be painful. Not always, but it does tend to be. And I felt that the more you bend forward, usually the worse the pain gets. But that absolutely wasn't the case for me. In fact, if I ever so slightly bent forward, that really triggered the pain. But if I fully bent forward, I was totally fine. So it was kind of weird, yes, again. Now, this gave me problems in my work because obviously when I've got a patient, they're on the bed in front of me, I often have a slight lean forward to do something here. So a lot of the day I was spent in the worst position for me. So it meant I had to be really careful with how I was positioning my body as I worked. The next thing I learned is that anything that increased compression through my spine made the symptoms worse. Now, I was expecting to go into the gym and find that any exercise where I bent over and used weights would make my pain worse, and sometimes that was the case, but often it was just holding a heavy weight or just having a heavy weight on my back, even if I was upright. That seemed to be the thing that triggered some of the worst pain. And what I think was happening there is that, let's say this is my spine, okay, and I've got the disc here, this is the injured disc. Now, if I'm holding a heavy weight, that's increasing something called axial loading, which is putting compression on the discs, and usually that's totally safe and fine. But if I've got an acute disc bulge, I think that extra compression was just enough to make it slightly bulge forwards. And if I was holding the weights for a sustained period of time, I could feel that pain just ever so slowly getting worse and worse and worse. So in the end, I used more machines where I didn't have so much weight going through my back, and I used more exercises where I was in a sitting position, which meant I could still use the gym without aggravating the problem. Before we go any further, I just want to tell you about 3-Tip Friday. 3-Tip Friday is my weekly email that I send out to my list, and it features 3 of the most interesting things I found that week. It could be a health tip, it could be a piece of research I'm reading, or it could be a new tool that I've found to be really useful for helping people get more mobile. It's totally free. I just send it out once a week. There's no annoying promos inside, and you can sign up for it by going down below this video and entering your email in the 3-Tip Friday link. The next thing I learned is that stretching, even doing these kind of stretches that I often tell my patients to do with sciatica, initially made the problem worse. And I started doing those stretches almost straight away. And for the first 2 weeks, no matter what stretch I did, I always finished that stretch and it felt worse. But later in the process, when things started to get better, I started those same stretches again and they made it better. So what I learned from this is that there isn't necessarily a bad exercise for sciatica, but there is an exercise that you can bring in at a bad time. So it might not necessarily be that an exercise does or doesn't work for you, it's just that you've introduced it too early. So stretching isn't necessarily bad, but if it's causing you to have worse symptoms, you might want to try something else before returning to the stretching later on. The next thing I learned is that walking was one of the best things for it right through the entire process. And I was really pleased to find that was the case for me, because I say this to all of my patients who have sciatica, it's really important to keep walking. Now, some days, any exercise I did seemed to make it worse. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to go for 3 very short walks. And every time I came back from those walks, it felt better. Not only was I helping the pain, but I was also maintaining my mobility and keeping at least some of the strength that I felt I was losing because I couldn't exercise as well. So walking is vital and super, super important. The next thing I learned is that this position here absolutely saved me. Even when I was sleeping in the same position just without the pillow, that slight rotation of my pelvis at night would cause me to wake up with the pain in the leg. But just having that folded up pillow between the knees separates your knees to such an extent that your pelvis ever so slightly rolls back, your pelvis and your spine line up just a little bit better, and it seems to relieve the pain, for me at least. So if you're struggling to sleep at night with sciatica, this could be one of the best positions for you. Now, when I was lying on my back, all I did was keep that pillow but tuck it behind my knees, and having that slight break in your knee there takes the tension off the sciatic nerve again and help me to sleep or lie down on my back comfortably as well. If my legs were flat, again, the sciatica came on, but just that slight bend in the knees seemed to just take the emphasis off the nerve enough for me to get enough rest. The final thing I learned is that tiny little movements helped a ton. And if I was doing exercises with big movements for the sciatica, it would often aggravate it, but the smaller movements seem to restore my mobility slowly over time. So I'm going to show you some of the movements that I personally did to help myself get better. These are not going to be suitable for everyone, and obviously get checked out before you give them a try. And if they cause you pain, just avoid them. That's super important, because for me, these exercises were completely pain-free. But if they cause you pain, they're likely to be aggravating it. So either it's the wrong exercise or you've introduced it too early. So the first thing I did was the mini cobra, which was super simple. All I did was lie on my front like this on a mat on the floor or my bed, and then using the strength in my arms, I just pushed my chest up about 6 inches and then very slowly came back down. Now I completed this exercise in a repetitive way, kind of like this. So I'm not really pausing at the top or the bottom, just keeping the movement going. And if you're doing this correctly, you're almost going to feel like nothing's happening. That's exactly how it felt for me. But as I was doing this, I often felt that the pain in my leg started to recede, and it started to go away as the set went on. So I came back to this exercise probably 4 times per day, doing 10 in a row each time, and that really helped me to get better. The second thing I did is I tried to get my glutes working, so I used a very simple clamshell exercise, which I'll show you now. So that involved lying on your side like this. My hands went on the bed here to keep my pelvis forward, and then keeping everything still, I just lifted that top knee just until I reached the point of stiffness. I couldn't go any higher, and then drop the knee back down and then back up again. And if you're doing this correctly, you should feel the glute muscle at the back here working quite hard. I really wanted to get my glutes working to try and protect my lower back as much as possible. And for some reason, the pain in my glute just seemed to feel better after I'd done the clam exercise. So I was lifting up and down. Sometimes I'd do 20, 25 of these in a row. And if I was feeling strong, I'd put a resistance band around my knees just to make it more of a challenge. I'd make sure I did that exercise on both sides, probably 2 or 3 times every day. An exercise that worked really well for me towards the end of the process was a seated glute stretch. Now, when I got to about 90% better, I felt loads better, of course, but I was getting this aching tightness sensation in my right glute, and it was happening quite a lot. Now, before, this stretch seemed to aggravate it, but as I got better and better, it instead seemed to help it. So what I did for this was, sitting in a chair, I brought my right shin onto my left thigh like this. I sat up nice and tall, had a hand here just to support, and then gently leant forward at the hips. Now I could feel a really intense stretch in my glute there whenever I did this, but it felt like a nice relieving tension as opposed to a pain. So I would hold this for 30 seconds, and then I would go into a different glute stretch where you slightly come back away from it, wrap both hands around your knee and then come up and across towards the opposite shoulder. Now it's the same muscle that's being stretched, but you can feel it in a different way. It kind of feels different to the first one. And again, I would hold that for 30 seconds, trying to keep a nice upright posture. And then when I put my leg down, the pain felt a lot better. Now, I'm not sure why that helped so much at the end, but didn't really help to start with. Maybe my glute had tightened up over time and that just helped to kind of relax it off a bit. But whatever the reason, it really seemed to help, particularly at the end. There was one exercise I used that seemed to help right the way through the process, and that's called the wall glide. It's a super simple exercise. It's just helpful to mobilize the lower spine. And my belief is that it helps to get some blood back towards the disc and helps it heal. So what I did for this exercise is basically stood against the wall. I'm going to show you this direction, but I actually faced the other way when I did this for my leg. And what you want is your painful leg to be on the outside. So in this example, my painful leg would be the left leg. Now you want to have your elbow and your forearm up against the wall like this. You want your feet together and maybe a 2-foot gap between the border of your foot nearest to the wall and the edge of the wall. Have that hand on the hip, and all you're going to try and do is bend your body so that your hips move towards the wall like this, and then come back to the neutral position. So you start off in a leaning position, and then you're just gliding your hips towards the wall. Now look, I've still got a big gap there between my hips and the wall, so I'm not expected to touch the wall there. That's absolutely fine. It's more just the movement that we're trying to get, which is what gives you the benefit. And just like the mini cobra, it's a small movement. I would do 10 of these in a row, just going towards the left side when I was doing it. So remember, I would have been flipped around. And again, I would try and do that 3, possibly 4 times per day, 10 repetitions each time. And it just helped my spine to get better. And I think that really accelerated my recovery. I also don't want to play down the fact that I still walked a lot. I did as much walking as I could, and I tried to do as much of my normal gym routine as I could, just avoiding the exercises that I could feel were making the sciatica worse. Sometimes I got it wrong and it felt fine at the time, and then I got home and it was worse. But most of the time I did actually feel better after I'd taken some exercise. I think that's absolutely key. If you have an injury, you should still be trying to be as active as possible, but just modifying what you normally do, just so you don't aggravate the problem. But if you stop exercise entirely, that can be when people start to get into trouble. So that's how I fixed my own sciatica. It was certainly a bit of a scary journey, but it all turned out okay in the end, and I hope today's video has helped to at least give you some hope as well. If you found it useful, do drop us a comment below and just let us know. And if you want some more advice about fixing sciatica at home, I've got tons of info about how to improve all the different causes of sciatica inside my book, including disc problems. It's called Thriving Beyond 50, the 2024 edition, and it's available now on Amazon and all good book retailers as well. So thank you so much if you pick up a copy. I hope you really enjoy it. Make sure you've liked this video, and if you know someone in need, do send it to them as well, and hopefully they'll get help too. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you again on the next video.